Hi, this is Paul from FinishYourSong.com. In the last video, we looked at recording automation by setting the track playing and having the computer record what you were doing as you did it. In this video, I want to look at the static writing of automation by directly entering the automation data onto the lane without having to put the DAW into record mode. How this is done is going to depend on your DAW, but in Cubase, like we looked at last time, you have the opportunity to directly enter the lane. Now in this particular case we're going to look at some volume changes across a particular track. So what you would do is click on the Show Hide Automation button and we've got our volume there. You could simply add any other that you wanted just by clicking on the Add button and then changing whatever it is you want. As we looked at, you can click on the More there and it brings you up every parameter that's available to you, including the master volume on the synth itself, different controls, MIDI modifiers, anything and everything you could want. So in this particular case we're going to stick with the volume because this isn't so much about adding a particular track. If you wanted to change that mute to something to do with the EQ on the channel strip, you would simply do that and it comes up like that, and then you've got that automation lane available to you. In this particular case we're not going to write any data into that. What we're going to look at is the volume. So I'm just going to zoom this up so we can have a look at what we might want to do, which you might want to make a volume change that affects a particular section or change the volume between sections. If you wanted to change the volume, say for the, let's just zoom that out, say you wanted to mute it a little bit in the verse. There's a number of ways you can do that. You can go up here to the draw tool, the pencil tool, just come down and write your data like that. Simple. Now what happens with your change is controlled by the automation panel up here, and it will fill depending on how you've got these set. And there's a lot in there and I'm not going to go through them right now. But as you can see, by simply clicking on the value I want, it makes the automation jump, and that automation runs to the end of the song. So if you want to, if we just do an undo, so if you wanted to make a change and you wanted it here, that would then change and then you could come back to here. It isn't, of course, because I'm just clicking randomly, that value and that value are not going to be the same. In fact, if we just highlight that, we can see that the value there is minus 2.68 and the value there is minus 1.85. So it would come in at one level, drop for the verse and actually be louder through the chorus. The other way you can do it is to use a line. And when you've got the line tool selected, you can draw a line. As it says, that line will be like that. And that line will go, as we can see, that's minus 2.68, that's minus 2.68. So we've actually drawn a volume change in there. Another thing we can do with the line tool is we can choose what type of line. So we could, for example, have a parabola. So we can now come back down here and using our parabola tool, connect that back up. Cubase will automatically put in the minimum number of automation points to achieve the line you draw. So what we've now drawn is that the volume would come in, it would drop through the verse and swell gently back across the space of the verse so that the volume level is the same at the end of the chorus. As you can see, when I make a change to the automation, it overwrites the existing automation that's there. some of the other shapes available to us are a sine. So I can put a sine wave in. That didn't work very well, did it? I can put a sine wave in. As you can see, if your sine wave is too shallow, you won't get any automation points recorded. Now, this may be of somewhat limited use for volume, but if you wanted to achieve a panning effect, you can see how it could be of use. Just take that out, go back to our original. Another shape that's available to us is the triangle and the square, and they again operate in the same way. They introduce automation points, and the height of the automation, or the span of the automation, is determined by how much you change that shape you're drawing on screen when you actually put the points in. If you aren't careful when you draw a line in, it's possible to draw a line that isn't level, so you don't end up with a simple drop like that. Another way to put automation points in is to select a range, say this verse, click and pull, and it will put an automation point at each end of the range. You can then add further automation points as you want. Final way to add automation points is simply to click on the line and drag. So you can put in automation data simply at the point you want by clicking and dragging. And as you can see, this is leaping because I've got the quantize set to the bar. This is now leaping along on the grid, from bar to bar. I scroll up, find that automation point, snap is set to bar, but I can set that to quantize, and then I can move like that. As a final, I can then select the range. Within the range, click and drag again. It will set me a second set of automation points. I can then select both of those and scale them. But that's getting into editing automation, which is what we'll look at in the next video. So that's it. It's very easy to add an automation lane and to write data onto that automation lane directly. Next time, we'll have a look at editing the information once you've got it in. Until then, you take care of yourselves.